was a vetting process, that you asked several times about whether there was any issue with the tenant. Well, it's the party, to be clear about it. So do you believe then either Jim Gavin didn't remember that he had this particular issue, or he misled the party? It seems to be, it can only be one or the other.
Well, he said he didn't recollect it and he had no record of it, and that prior to that there was no dispute or issue with a tenant disclosed, and that there was no issue with a tenant. Obviously, as that evolved over the weekend, he recognised that he made a mistake. I'm not going to come to a conclusion here about what exactly, how that had changed for himself, but it did, and obviously that was different to what he said prior to Friday, and the facts are clear about that.
Do you find that plausible? Because, I mean, a lot of people are looking at this saying if they had gotten a solicitor's letter from somebody even a long time ago and at a difficult time in his life, they'd remember that.
Well, look, that's why obviously people have questions about it and why it was a serious matter over the weekend.
Just in terms of the vetting process that went on, just one or two questions. Did Fianna Fáil bring in an external company to assist you guys in this process?
So the Fianna Fáil headquarters can detail the nature of the due diligence process. There would have been a number of engagements with Jim Gavin through the due diligence process.
But you were the campaign manager.
Yeah, and
So
there was a number.
Tell us if an external company came in or not.
A number of people were involved in the due diligence process, and they can detail that to you.
And just on it's easy to kind of look back in retrospect, and everyone's an expert. But do you regret not saying to Jim Gavin, hey, you said we've clarified you used to be an accidental landlord effectively, you had a tenant, we're going to need names and we're going to reach out to these people and just double check that you haven't forgotten, as Micheál Martin said last night, something in the recess of your mind. Do you regret not doing that?
There was questions were asked about any issues relating to tenants, and that wasn't disclosed.
So do you regret not asking, does Fianna Fáil, or you regret not asking Jim Gavin, who were these tenants? We'll go speak to them and tell you, because we've heard over and over again the last 4 or 5 years in housing about how landlords do things to tenants and it's bad. Like, how would you expect someone who was a landlord who maybe did have something go wrong to volunteer that to you? Surely you guys should have gone, give us the names, we'll go find them, we'll talk to them, and we'll tell you if there's a problem or not. Because you were bringing a guy who was never involved in politics, ever.
Well, just to be clear, he's someone who's held in highly regarded, with someone who had provide enormous contribution to public service as a public figure in sport and community and the volunteer movement for many, many years. So the party can set out the due diligence that...
First of all, you're throwing Jim Gavin under a bus. Now you're throwing Fianna Fáil HQ under a bus.
No.
Do you take any responsibility for how badly this campaign is run? And you were the director of election for this campaign.
I obviously regret what's after happening, and disappointed that what emerged over the weekend did, and obviously the party will discuss that.
We'll take the last question from Paul.
Minister, just on the Jim Gavin situation, it seems to be that you have said that his version of events was contradicted by the documents that were later provided. Did Jim Gavin lie to you? The Taoiseach has said that he forgot something in the recesses of his brain. That it feels like a very generous reading of things. When you asked Jim Gavin about this issue with his tenant, when he gave you the version of events which was later contradicted, did he lie to your face about what happened?
Well, he said he had no record or recollection, had no issue with a tenant, and obviously that's obviously not the case. The facts changed for him in relation to it.
But do you feel like he lied to you? Like,
I'm not going to.
You're here answering questions on behalf of Jim Gavin because he didn't give you.
Jim Gavin has withdrawn from the campaign, and obviously that's something that was something he decided to do in the context of what emerged over the weekend. But I'm not going to, and something obviously big, something that's a major decision for him as well. And after significant error emerged. Look, Of course, I'm very disappointed. Was looking forward to being involved in an active, energetic campaign for the next number of weeks. I always enjoyed my roles as Director of Elections in the local elections last year, the general election last year, and I enjoy campaigning. So obviously, I would prefer to be on the doors in the coming weeks, and we won't be.
Minister, sorry, Minister. Very last one, Minister. Do you have any kind of message for rank and file Fianna Fáil supporters who are upset about the finances that were sunk into the campaign that are obviously now not going to be recouped, more than likely?
So look, everyone is disappointed. We wanted to run a strong national campaign, and obviously what emerged has undermined that. And obviously there'll be regret for around that, but that's obviously disappointing for everybody.
Okay, thanks everybody.
This is going away from questions that's scheduled for now. We're running away from questions.
We've taken.
It's scheduled for now.
Do you have a question, Killian?
Yeah. Who are those party figures then, and when are they going to make it clear to us about this vetting process?
So Party HQ can respond to any questions.
I mean, we're coming around asking questions, and you're walking away from them now.
I'm not.
When will we get those answers, and when will Party HQ
If
come out and do
if
that?
you submit press queries to Fianna Fáil,
Well, we've had experience with press queries in relation to Jim Gavin, and we didn't get the right answers initially, right? So when will this be made clear?
Fianna Fáil I'm sure will be happy to answer any press queries relating to the due diligence process. Well, I'll refer that to them, but they'll be able to set out the due diligence process.
Minister, with respect, you were the Director of Elections. Why can't you set out the due diligence process?
I could say there was an extensive, robust and comprehensive due diligence process where Jim Gavin was asked about any issues relating to a tenant, and the issue that emerged was not disclosed. That's factually the case.
As Director of Elections, when did this first come to you? I mean, the Irish Independent reported that they raised this with Fianna Fáil on September 8th. Was that brought to your attention as Director of Elections on September?
So the general query was raised, and that was brought to Jim Gavin was asked about that, and he said he had no issue with a tenant, and that was consistent from his position in when he was asked through the due diligence process, and that was his position up to and including Friday.
Have you spoken to him since?
The last time I spoke to him was on Sunday when he stood back.
Has he paid the tenant back?
Last time I spoke to him was on Sunday, so I haven't spoken to him since.
Would you encourage him to pay the tenant back?
I would.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
everybody. Thank you.
Well, the party can examine that. I'm sure we'll be examining that in the context of the campaign.
Like a spectacular error, and you're blaming Fianna Fáil HQ,
I'm not.
and you're blaming Jim Gavin for essentially misleading you. Like, what if anything were you responsible for in this campaign? And can you just give us 3 or 4 things that you did actively on this campaign? Because it doesn't seem like you did an awful lot. You're blaming everyone else.
I'm not. No, I mean, clearly what happened was very disappointing, and was actively involved in trying to organise canvasses, getting our campaign going in every constituency across the country with a number of colleagues who are regional directors, and then trying to build the grassroots momentum that's standard in any particular campaign. And I take every role I do in politics really seriously, and as Director of Elections in the local elections and the general election, I always put everything into it. And I'm obviously disappointed that we now don't have a candidate like everyone else in the party. And as I said, we had a comprehensive and robust due diligence process, and as we would with any candidate. And that was the case here. It was the case that this issue relating to the tenant was not disclosed, and obviously what emerged, particularly over the weekend, contradicted that. So. But look, I'd much prefer to have a candidate in the field running for the party, and to be involved in that active campaign. And that's my sole motivation is always to do the best to represent the party in government, and indeed as a campaign director to maximise our vote share.
Be Director of Elections again, or is this your last time out?
I always willing to play any role to maximise the support for the party, and as I said, take every role I do in life seriously and obviously work with colleagues to maximise our vote share.
Thank you.
Thank you.